You're listening to the Career Plus Life Catch-Up, episode number 81. Welcome to the Career Plus Life Catch-Up, a show anchored in reality to help you create a balanced life where you enjoy both your work and your life, because you don't have to choose. I am your host, Cecile Ferry, a corporate executive turned coach and working mom. This is your place for insights, advice, and tools to optimize your career direction, balance, and confidence. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Hello, my beautiful friend, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for bearing with me. It's been busy and I've been sick a little while back, and just like, I don't know where November went. So it was my intent to post a podcast earlier, but I only got to it today, where finally today was a clear day in my diary where I could catch up on my business and on work properly. So it feels really good, and I hope you are doing well. I hope you are surviving, managing in the current times. Maybe it might be a good idea for you to go and check out my last episode on getting ready for the silly season if you are starting to feel that overwhelmed. So a lot of really wise and practical tips for you in there. So I am back today. You must wonder, maybe the title of today's episode sounds a little generic, a little broad. So what am I going to talk about? What today is about is actually like an extension of a podcast that I did, which was number 42. I will link it in the show note. And it was called The Working Women Conditioning, where I was talking about the evolution of women over time and why it is that women are where they are, and why it is that they're feeling what they're feeling. And I really explained a lot what had been happening in society in the last 20 years. Okay, so today is just building further on that, because I have been observing behaviors and I've been talking with a lot of women through my clients, obviously, through work, through my friendships, and I am seeing things. I am observing patterns, and there are a couple of things that I really wanted to come on the podcast and talk about, because some stuff, spoiler alert, is really annoying me. So I want to come on here and talk about what I believe is happening and what I believe may not be true facts, and talk more generally about what's happening with women, and because it is my passion, how I can support you more. So it is my intention that whoever you are when listening to this podcast, I hope you will find bits that will resonate with you. I will also preface little T's and C's. This may sound like massive generalizations, and it is, right? I am not talking about everybody and anybody. I'm talking generally about what I'm seeing 80% of the time. So it may not all apply to you or the women that you know, and that's completely okay and normal. But I'm pretty sure it will resonate with a lot of you listeners. What I'm talking about today, the background is that the last couple of years, we've had a lot to deal with, especially as women. Well, we all collectively, but here I'm just going to talk about women. And I could go into reflections about men, and I know they don't have it easy either, but today is about women. We have been through years of pandemic. We have been working from home like never before and blending work and home, and that is not always a really good mix. And we now have this cost of living crisis that's been looming over us for quite some time now. So we can talk about the impact that can be quite chronic these days. So overall, I want to talk about the physical, mental, and emotional evolution and translation of all of that for women today. And frankly, it is hard being a woman in 2023. So I want to talk about the lay of the land, what I'm seeing, what I'm observing, what I am noticing as a coach, as a friend, as a bit of a personal development expert. And then I want to talk about what those things are not, because they are mixed up with some things and I don't believe it's true. So I want to set a few things straight there. And then finally, I want to talk about what, if you identify with all of that, like what can you do to make it easier on yourself? So this is going to be a really interesting episode that will probably spark a few things, and it may help you feel understood and seen and really realize that you are so not alone. Are you ready for this? Let's get into it. Okay, so let's get through a bit of a lay of the land. What's happening with women in 2023? Generalization, of course. So number one, I see women are less and less, if not really at all, in their feminine energy. So if you look at women at work or at home, I see women doing a lot of things that they're not actually designed for. The feminine energy is not designed to chase, to hustle, to push, to be racing, to be controlling. Like I see a lot of women being in that kind of tower control mode, organizing a lot of things, like keeping so many balls in the air and really efforting a lot, pushing at work, putting really long hours, really trying hard at home as well, like holding so many things, responsibilities, and just really acting like men in that regard. And men are not in their masculine enough either. So there's a bit of that dance going on, and I think it manifests a lot in relationships, as in personal relationship, because women are more and more demanding and they are more and more in their masculine energy because it comes on the back of their professional success, the women that are entrepreneurs, the women that are really successful in their corporate careers or government careers, right? So they are really bringing that energy into relationship, and that doesn't work because we are designed to be masculine and feminine. And as women, like, we have to remember, we are designed to receive, to be in the energy of the receiver. And I don't need to give you a full anatomy class to really illustrate that. Like, we are not designed to be the one taking the lead. We are designed to be kind of the person that is in harmony with the person that is taking the lead and the charge. And we bring a lot of other qualities through our energy, which are more about communication and nurturing and teamwork and harmony and creativity and intuition, like all those things that the masculine energy cannot do. So I'm seeing a lot of masculine energy in women these days. And even with that, surge to make more money and to be richer, I think that is also very masculine. Another thing that I see is women are always on the run, like so much. It's like they're always running around and it goes so fast. Like, talk to women. You can barely catch up with women on the phone these days, can you? Like, it's just become that constant race where there is no time, there's no downtime, there is literally no time to sometimes even eat or go to the bathroom in between meetings, in between getting the kids. Like, I hear women that they're just not really eating. They're making sure their house is fed, and it's like what I eat when I have time and when there is something. So there's just that constant go, 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 with really the only time the women seems to stop is when they hit the pillow, which I'm sure they will say is too late. And linked to that, I believe women are struggling even more than ever with their mental load. And that is kudos to all the technology that makes us available 24/7 and all the apps and all the WhatsApp groups that we have for everything in the world, and all the way to, taking care of the household, what is missing, what we need to replace, what's happening with school. And it's just a lot more that requires our attention all the time. And it tends to fall on women. And I'm not the one saying just that. I was listening to Gabor Mate recently, and he was talking about how I think it's 70% of autoimmune disease occur with women. There's a very high imbalance of gender when it comes to autoimmune disease. And so his point was that why is it the women? Why is it the women 70 to 30%? It is because the women carry a much heavier mental load and they have a lot more stress going on and a lot more anxiety. So we're more prone to that. And the fact and the medical results show it. Our mental load and our stress levels are really costing us a lot. So let me continue. And I don't want this to sound like doom and gloom and bad and pessimistic. I'm talking about observation here. And don't worry, I will take you on the way up afterwards. But let's just talk for a minute about the cost of living crisis. It's affecting everyone. But I see how it's really impacting women because they worry. Because it's in our nature to worry. It's in our nature to protect and to nurture our families, our children. And when the very foundations of that are being threatened right now because feeding our families is very expensive, because having a roof over our head and having a home is very expensive. And I know quite a few women who are wondering if they can keep their homes or what is going to happen with their homes because of high interest rates and the cost of living. So this is absolute real. And I think it's not spoken about enough, the impact on people's mental health. I saw a post on that recently. Like, there are very strong mental health issues linked to that, and women are bearing a lot of them. And that leads to a lot of anxiety and women not sleeping well at night because they are the emotional provider of those things. And when the money is not there, when the environment is a bit threatening, it is absolutely normal for women to fear for their family and for their children. Another thing that I'm seeing, and that's a completely different topic, is that I'm seeing women putting up with partners, usually long-term partners and husbands, who are frankly not pulling their weight. And they know it, and they're unhappy, and some of them are incredibly frustrated to the point that they cannot stop voicing this to their girlfriends, to their colleagues. That's all you hear. Like, sometimes you feel you really know too much about someone's partner and not communicating about it, not trying to solve it, and sometimes just fully resign that this is how they are. But it is a real problem. I'm seeing it more and more. And some women will make the step, like I have, to leave a relationship where I was unhappy. But also I see a lot of women then who are on their own, who are not finding men that are living up to the expectations, that are right for them. So the grass isn't greener there. But there seems to be a mismatch between the level of growth and evolution and expectation of some women in terms of, communication, lifestyle, contribution, also care about the children, contributing to the load, because all those women are smart and educated, and it's not that they're not asking. Most of the time is they just cannot get what it is that they want. And that just puts them into a very tough situation because you have children, like you bear a lot of responsibility and you are thinking long and hard about your options, and they're not many and they're not really good options either. So I just want to say, if that's where you are, I hear you, I see you, and it is not easy. If we talk about friendship for a minute, it's not that much easier either. And I'm generalizing again, but do you often see your close friends? How often do you see your best friend? Because I talked about the phone, that doesn't seem to be happening. Like, how often do you talk to them? And do you have time for meaningful, deep friendships? What I'm seeing, all those women desire that, they value that, but the reality is they don't have the time. They cannot make the time, they cannot carve the time because they've got too many balls in the air, the mental load is too much, and as much as they wish to, they are just not getting to. I think it's also difficult for women because they're not getting the replenishment that having those close friendships mean for them. They're also looking for like-minded people, and sometimes the people that they meet and they see at the school gate or in some communities or environments or groups, they don't align always with where they're going, with their values. So what I'm saying here is that even if they have some time for some friendship, it may not be the friendship that are truly nourishing and that they want. Or I see a lot of women who are actually looking for friends, who are alone and really looking for those like-minded people. So if that's you as well, you're looking for more friends, or friends that resonate with what it is that you enjoy doing, you are not alone. And my final point is that I see women being extremely hard with themselves. And that is sometimes even hard to spot if that's you, because you don't see how you talk to yourself, because you don't, literally. You will have to write it down. Someone will have to read it aloud to you for you to realize that's how you talk to yourself. It's just so ingrained, so fast, so automatic. You don't even see it. It just happens in your subconscious. But it is absolute real. It is real dialogue and real communication. And you keep feeding your brain messages that you should do more, you should be more, you should have more, you should be more this, more that. Or you constantly, like, for instance, looking at how hard things are, how things, might be challenging at work or at home. And instead of having compassion, their mind just goes to, nah, you should do better. You should deal with that. Like, look at yourself. Like that kind of negative self-talk, I really see. And I can hear it and I can feel it sometimes with some of my girlfriends. Like, it's so obvious. We just add a layer on top of all those external circumstances where we blame and shame, where we really wish we could have the upper hand. We're just judging ourselves so much for the way we're currently reacting and responding and managing and handling what's happening. Am I right? Even a little bit? Examples. Like, I see women who are thinking, I should just, eat better, or they push themselves to exercise more, or they just think it's really wrong to be in that space where, you're having difficulties and you just can't see the light, and then you're not sleeping. Like, this can happen, and I have so been there. But I'm in a very different place now, and that place is I just look at myself first and I treat myself like my own best friend. Because if your best friend was describing the things I've just spoken about, whether she had a partner that she had issue with, or the cost of living crisis really affecting her, or a very high mental load, or, being really in a role at work where she has to push herself all the time to deliver, like, you'd be like, yes, this is like, you're doing too much, or it's too much for you, and no wonder. And you wouldn't be like, come on, get a grip. Like, you should just go to the gym and you should react and you should control yourself, and, pushing a lot of self-discipline onto yourself. That is not the answer. So I'm done with the lay of the land. And as you could hear, it's not very positive. And that's why I'm here, because I'm concerned for the mental state, the emotional state, which will ultimately translate to physical state of women these days. Like, those women that are pushing themselves so much, that are in the masculine, that have very unbalanced life, that are running all the time, and they're not emotionally satisfied through their relationship, be it friendship or partners, and just holding all of that. Like, they're just not enough positives to offset the negatives. And I think they're just going through life that way, and I feel so much for them that I want to help, and we're going to talk about what to do. Before we get into kind of trying to solve for all those things today, which could take forever, but no, we will do our best in a short amount of time. Before that, here, I want to make a bit of a public announcement, more like a Cecile's announcement, because I want to talk about two things that I believe are completely wrongly labeled and attributed to all those states in women. And I'm seeing those things, and it really, really gets my blood boiling, and I will tell you what. But there are two things that are spoken about a lot at the moment, and when we get about those issues. And I'm going to talk typically about some of the symptoms. A lot of them can be physical. But what I'm hearing a lot these days, and especially through my friends, they're like, yeah, I am this, I am that. And the two things I'm hearing on repeat are, it's perimenopause, number one. And version number two I'm hearing is, I think I have ADHD. So let me address those two things, because I'm feeling highly, highly passionate about what's going on here. And again, this is my view, my take. I am not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, so just take it for what it is. The thing is, I'm hearing so much talk about perimenopause. I kid you not, this is the reason why I'm doing this whole episode. I think a lot about this is absolute BS. In the way it is presented and in the way women relate to it and latch onto it and think they have perimenopause. Because typically there is talk about symptoms like fatigue, poor sleep, putting on weight, mood swings, irritability, right? So that's one thing to do with perimenopause. And my deep feeling about all of this, because it came kind of out of nowhere and now it's everywhere, it just really sounds like a fad. I went to some specialist webinars on menopause and perimenopause, so I do know what I'm talking about. The fact is, those symptoms, A, have always existed. B, are actually for a very small minority of the population. Most people go through menopause without a lot of those problems, right? The thing is, those symptoms that I've just described that could apply to perimenopause can also, and I believe, are symptoms related to many other things. But what the world is doing these days is saying, putting the label on it like, oh, it's perimenopause. So it gives the women kind of a way out and some also a way to know what's wrong with them and what's going on with them. And nearly like one more thing to deal with. And it's just nice to have this justification. And then we're like, oh, I need to deal with that and I need to find a solution. I don't believe it's true. I believe there's a big hype. I believe there are a lot of parties interested in this kind of trend because it will sell products. So I would say be very mindful. Do not self-diagnose in that space. Do not start getting into some of those products because I don't believe for most women that it is perimenopause. I think a lot of their symptom is something else that I'll talk about in a sec. Okay? So be very careful. Do not buy into the perimenopause as the label of what's going on. The other thing I was talking about is ADHD. Have you noticed every second woman out there these days thinks that she has ADHD? Why? Because social media has just made this really democratized and popular. And they're just posts everywhere. It's coming through every podcast. And I am not here to deny the reality of ADHD. Far, far from it. But I am here to say that there's a difference between what ADHD truly is and what some other people think is going on. And people thinking they have ADHD when they don't, but it looks like they do. So examples like symptoms of those women that look like ADHD: distraction, loss of memory, loss of concentration, inability to organize things, procrastination, right? I'm sure a lot of those women that I described in the first section of the podcast would naturally do those things because of things that they're carrying. And I just want to say here, without doing a full episode on it, ADHD is a real thing. It is a condition you are born with. It is not something that manifests through some symptoms at one point of your life. It is who you are. It is the way your brain is designed, and it is quite literally debilitating for especially some people that have it more than others. So it's something to be treated really seriously. And when you have ADHD, not only you know, but you kind of known all your life, because ADHD, you've had it from the moment you were born. And that's why there is a very serious diagnosis process with that focuses entirely on your childhood. Because as an adult, you can more easily manage, mask it, deal with it. If someone had ADHD, like they will tell you, it's no joke. And it's not like a passing symptom, like a distraction and loss of concentration. It is actually a way of being that you cannot alter. And as I said, it can be very debilitating. And unfortunately, it's not that cool, sexy thing or whatever superpower that I read sometimes online. It is not a superpower. So before you think that you have ADHD and label and self-diagnose, go and see a psychiatrist for a proper assessment. And those things take time and are costly. But what I'm saying is, whether we look at symptoms that I've described of perimenopause or ADHD, well, when we think it's that, what I'm here to say, well, it probably is not. And what it is likely to be is exhaustion and possibly even burnout. Also, it is stress and chronic stress. And that creates hormone dysregulation. It is anxiety because of a lot of that stress, because of the environment and the unknown and the uncertainty. Or it is misalignment in your life, especially whether it's in your work or in your relationship. That creates a lot of those emotions, and if they're not dealt with and they happen all the time, all that angst just turns into physical symptom. So all the things I described before, women not sleeping and the fatigue and even putting on weight, like this comes from cortisol, your stress hormones. So my whole point here is, do not be lured, and now you've been warned listening to this podcast, that, it's just perimenopause or I may have ADHD. No, you are worn out, you are overworked, you are overstretched, you are overstressed. This is more likely what's happening. And when we are in those situations, we tend to medicate as in a way to cope. And I know that really well. That was me 10 years ago. And I was coping with food, I was coping with shopping, or I was coping with drinking wine. And those things in turn, especially with the food and the wine, really impact your liver, which makes it really difficult to sleep well, to have healthy cycles and your hormones as well. So, and that's when we're like, this perimenopause symptom. You may have hormone issues, but they don't come from perimenopause. They come from dysregulation, coming from your levels of stress and anxiety. So hear me out, and I'm not a doctor, but if you're starting to think, maybe, please, the take out of here is go and see a qualified GP that you trust that will give you the right diagnostic. So instead of you reading things on Instagram and being like, it's that, I've got ADHD, I've got perimenopause. So that's the main message I really wanted to say today. I'm quite angry really when I see those labels being given on women. We already have enough to deal with, as I said earlier, with everything that's on our plate, that we don't need wrong labels on top. And it's really, frankly, misleading and not fair for us. So I've said it, rant over. All right, now I'm not going to leave you with that. I want to give you some of my suggestions. If you identify with the women that I've described, what can you do? First things first, that won't surprise you. Women need to go back to essential self-care. Essential means to me eating, sleeping, looking after the health, having breaks, mental breaks. So start there. If that's you, put yourself to bed earlier, take a lunch break, eat some food throughout the day. It sounds really obvious and basic, but it's not happening for a portion of women, and it really needs to start there. And if you don't do it, no one will do it for you. And you cannot not do that, even though it just feels normal and seems normal to live like that, but it's not. Secondly, I talked about get a diagnostic with a good GP on your symptoms before you label them. Thirdly, I strongly suggest to decaffeinate and de-alcoholize your life. It may not sound fun because you feel like you need that, but these are props, and they actually, in turn, they seem to help at the moment, they seem to help in the moment, but actually they prolonged and consistent use, or however frequent use it is, is detrimental to your health longer term and to those stress hormone and to your ability to cope. So actually, they do more damage than what you think. And they end up taking their toll instead of really relieving you. Another thing you can do, if that's you, give up on the self-criticism, the self-talk, and the self-judgment, because that is within your control. And that is one layer that can go out the door straight away now. And you have to be your own police, and your mind will suggest it to you, especially if it's habitual. And it will take a month or two to really pick up on that and be like, hell no. Like, you know, when you just see those little voices saying you should do that, stop that. And catch yourself and go, no thanks. You know, like you would be the best friend. And like, no thank you. I am not going to shame and blame myself here and push myself harder. I'm going to have a lot of care and compassion. Also, I want to say one thing that I believe will help is to accept with yourself and with others to say that it's hard. I think there's that culture of let's not show that we maybe be struggling or that life is hard. And so we just talk about other things and we say we're busy and we ask questions of others, but like be vulnerable and be like, it's really hard. If more women could actually open up with each other, that would help everyone being in their feminine energy of being in solidarity, supporting each other, caring for each other. Because like, what's the damage of doing that? Nothing. You get something off your chest and you allow another woman to open up and to relate with you. I think we need a lot more honesty about, you know, how we're actually feeling. And my girlfriends do that with me. And that's why I'm here sharing some of that state, because I can see the suffering. And it may not, you know, lift it all away, but it helps to share. Another thing we can do is to allow men to be more in their roles. That could be a long episode, but look in your life where you're just taking over, you're taking the charge, where you want to lead. Where can you give some of that power back to them? What can they own? Where can they step up? What can you delegate to them? It's really, really important to start thinking about that. And likewise, if you have them, get your kids to help out. Of course, not when they're toddlers, but when they're older, like they are a resource. You got to look. You've got so much on your plate. You either got to get rid of some or you got to get some help. And just, I think we don't think enough of asking our kids to help out. We do so much for them. And I'm part of that group. I'm really trying to enforce little tasks onto my daughter, even if they're not big, but she has to put her lunchbox inside her school bag every day. I am not doing that. I'm still doing the lunchbox, but I'm hoping not for long. So if your kids can do their lunchbox, or if they can cook a meal a week, if they're teenagers, get them to be in charge, because it's also beneficial for them. It makes them really independent and really grow, and that will help you too. So something to think about. With yourself, you should look at lowering some standards, especially when you're in crisis mode. In crisis mode, you don't operate like you normally would. Remember, it's like being at war and being at battle, right? I know it's been a long time that we felt in that space, but it's still very much the case. So what can go given the circumstances? I think we're still trying to live and keep all the balls in the air, and that makes it extra hard. And likewise, are you doing too many things? And is it time to clear the plate and to stop stretching yourself so thin? And I'm saying all of that, this may be a good time for you to think about that as you do your review of the year and plan differently for next year. Another question for you that I'm going to leave with you is look at your weeks and look at how you're spending your time. Which activities or things that you do are done in your feminine energy? Can you tell me? Can you list them? And you might realize right there that there is a very strong imbalance, and start reintroducing things. So for me, for instance, it is going to yin yoga. It is meditation. It is, I have a creative outlet right now. I do a lot of masculine things as well, but I do have some feminine, and it's very important to have. So I hope all of those little tools can help you start rebalancing from a physical, but especially a mental and emotional point of view. So here we go. I have spoken quite a lot, and these were my reflections on women today. You may disagree, or you may really think like, yes, I've just described you quite well today. So you are not alone. You're actually in great company. And it is really linked to the changes that have happened in the world, especially in the last few years, and the evolution of the role of the women. And I feel like we've done nothing wrong. Like, this is just the way we have adapted. But it is possible for us still today to not accept all of that, or to choose differently, to make different choices. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of those choices. Do you want to do well, or do you want to be well? Do you want to not lose, or to lose yourself? To get or to give? To earn or to receive? To feel deserving or to claim as your right? To push or to create? To control or to feel? Let all of those sink in, and keep that in mind. You have a choice, but you have to make it. It's not going to be led to you. You're not going to be forced to it. And you can start small, but start saying no, start looking after yourself. Like I said, start managing your time so that, you don't stay in that lane that I've described today for too long, or in a way that is accelerating, because there is no good outcome there for you and for other people around you that you care about. And I very much care about you too. So that's why I did this episode, and I love your feedback on it. If it resonated, leave me a review, send me a message on social media. And I really hope that, you realize it's not just you. There's nothing wrong with you. You are in fact doing a pretty amazing job. I am sure of that. But you just need more help. You need to just step a bit out of this really big kind of spiral that we're in, and you need to make different choices to put yourself first. So it is my wish for you for this week, for this month of December starting, and I really hope that it has inspired you. Wish you good luck with everything coming up, and I really want to leave you with a couple more podcasts before the end of the year, including one on my reflections for 2023, so stay tuned for that. Take care, everyone. I will speak with you soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to find out more information, you can visit my website at careercatchup.com. There you will find blog articles, free resources, a self-study course for your career direction, and ways to work with me. It's at careercatchup.com. I hope to continue to connect with you and support you. Talk to you soon.